Are you looking for a fun and cheap build that only requires PA and your fists? A build that has potential to be very strong to one-tap very strong enemies, as well as fight Yao Guais without having to run away like Knight Titus? Then this build is for you. Timestamps will be below, let's get right to it. So the build we'll be using today is a full health build. The link of the build will be in the description, and you guys can pause the video if you guys want to check it out further. I'll also be showing the Bloody build as well after these perk cards. Now this build capitalizes on some of the new perk cards that we got in Season 18, which is Thirst Quencher, Iron Stomach, Natural Resistance, and Vaccinated, where the amount of endurance points that you have from all sources will increase the stats of those certain perk cards. But as an unarmed melee build, you want to have as much strength as well. Any point of strength will increase your melee damage as well as your carry weight. So with that in mind, we invested 15 points directly into strength. Now let's go ahead and show the Bloody build real quick. For the Bloody build, there's a couple changes that we've made to our perk cards. Instead of First Aid in Intelligence, we have Nerd Rage. Instead of Vaccinated, we now have Radical. And with just those two simple changes, this is now a Bloody build. Bloody builds will do more damage due to the Nerd Rage and the mutation Adrenal Reaction, which will increase your damage the lower your health is. Now let's go ahead and check out our legendary perk cards that we'll be using today. Now we won't be using any of the legendary perk cards at the moment, but if you want to increase your damage, I recommend strength and take one for the team. The full min-max build will be near the end of the video. Now for our gear, we're going to be using the T45 set that is all level 10, with calibrated shocks for extra carry weight, motion assisted for extra strength on the torso, and then the key item, the Tesla bracers for the arms. Now a lot of the Tesla Bracer Power Armor mods can be found inside of vendors, and it's probably the most expensive thing within this build. Now I originally wanted to do just regular mobs and maybe behemoths to show the damage and such, but I figured I'd throw in a boss just in case anyone was curious how this fares in the endgame. Now most of the damage is going to be coming from power attacks, but even still, unfortunately it won't do much to the health. But to show you guys some of the stats that we'll be using, it's all there. As well as 21 endurance, we'll be getting an additional 76 damage resistance, 43 fire, energy, poison, and cryo, and 98 AP. Those are from the endurance perk cards that I mentioned earlier. Now these are the mutations that I like to use. You might see Adrenal Reaction, that is actually for the Bloody build, but I was too lazy to remove it, and it doesn't really have any major impact on the build as a full health. In fact, it actually gives you a little bit of extra damage if you're like me and forget to stim. Now we'll pop on over to the perk cards and show you guys that there's no tomfoolery going on, that I'm using a different build or anything, as well as the legendary perk cards, which is still absolutely nothing. Now normally I do this in a private server, but I wanted to show you guys how this would fare in a public, because you're most likely going to be bringing this build if you use it into a public server and not soloing bosses. So I wanted to leave a disclaimer that there is going to be some flashing lights, some bright lights, so if that's something that may affect you, please skip ahead. But let's get down to the fight and see how the damage looks. Now we're here in the Earle fight, and I can barely hit him because I don't know how to aim my fist for some odd reason, and we're hitting for a little over 1,000 on a headshot and just about 400 for the body shots. Now for the life of me, I still could not hit Earle, but we were able to get a couple tags in for 435 as well as 1119 for the headshot. Now we're going to go ahead and take one of our buffs, which is going to be the Tasty Yao Guai Roast, which gives us 213 increased melee damage. And let's see how much we can hit now. We just hit for 3157, which is a massive increase for just one food buff. Now there's a handful of buffs that we're actually missing, but just to show you how much damage that this thing can do, with just the most basic setup and practically a level 50 build or level 60 build, we're hitting for over 2,000 with one buff and just our fist. Now honestly, before season 18, this build would actually do really well against queens. Goliaths not so much, but now with the changes in defenses and HP to bosses, it doesn't fare as great. So if you're not one to boss or just want to have some fun outside of the endgame content, this is definitely worth a try. Nothing like brawling it out with the Assaultrons, Falco punching some super mutants, blowing up some suiciders, and of course taking on some of the larger enemies like behemoths and putting them to sleep. Now as I said, I was going to show the endgame build here near the end of the video, so let's get to it and check out the perk cards. So first, it is the full health build. You can see that there isn't a tremendous change to what we had in the beginning. Now the reason for that is 2 out of the 5 legendary cards that I'm using is for strength and endurance to capitalize on extra melee damage, as well as the endurance perk cards for the additional stats. For charisma, we have tenderizer for additional damage, intelligence we have power user for better fusion duration, and then also for luck we have bloody mess and ricochet. Bloody mess for more damage, and ricochet for an extra layer of defense. Now let's go ahead and check out the bloody variant. Now for the bloody build, there's only a few changes. Again, like the full health build, everything is relatively the same, except for nerd rage now replacing the first aid, and fireproof being level 2, adding radical as the last perk card for endurance. But everything else from agility, intelligence, luck, strength, perception is all the same. Now how do we have this many cards? Let's go ahead and check our legendaries. Now, unlike the beginner build, we have legendary endurance, luck, intelligence, strength, and agility as our perk cards all maxed out. Now for the last perk card, it is entirely up to you, whatever your preference is. Some recommendations is Brawling Chemist, Electric Absorption, and if you want a little bit of extra damage, take one for the team. But if not those, whatever your heart desires. Now let's go ahead and check out the damage for the endgame full health and bloody build. For this first run, we're going to be using the full health, and just showing you guys that we're going to be using no buffs. All the mutations are exactly the same, as well as the perk cards and legendary perk cards that you guys saw just a moment ago. Now while we scroll through this, a little tip that you guys can do, and just in case you didn't know, is if you sprint and you swing, do a normal regular hit, it'll actually be considered a power attack. Like I mentioned earlier, the main source of damage is through power attacks. There is a way to double tap. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to check that out and see how that works. But let's go up to this Behemoth, wait for him to come up, and we're hitting for 739. With the tenderizer damage, we're now hitting for 814. For a full health build without any kind of buffs, 800 damage is not too bad, right? Now if only I was able to hit the head, probably would have done a lot more damage, but unfortunately, as you saw in the Earle, I don't know how to aim. Let's go ahead and check out the Bloodied now. Now again, like the full health, we'll go over the effects as well, and then show the perk cards so you guys know that there's nothing crazy going on. Again, no buffs. And then we'll go ahead and boop the Behemoth. Now if you were to ask me which one I prefer over the other, I'd probably go with the Bloodied because I like seeing numbers, seeing the big numbers, and I like to take a lot of buffs. And also with the potential of this build being able to boop something once, it's always nice to see. But let's go ahead and check out the damage on this Behemoth. We'll wait for Buddy to get up. And we are going to swing for 974 and 1074 for the Tenderizer proc. And we're able to 3-tap this Behemoth without a headshot with ease. Now to be fair, the non-max version will do roughly the same amount of damage. But that about covers it, friends. I hope you guys find this build a little fun to use if you do decide to use it, and the information useful. I'll also leave a link in the description for an older build that I have for a carryweight build that uses the One Punch or the Tesla Bracers build. Now again, this build may struggle with harder enemies and endgame content, but it can run the expeditions, daily ops, and everything outside in the world with ease and no problems. But on that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Happy hunting, good luck, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.